All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started with our second session. We're going to welcome now Alabama offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin and running back Damian Harris. Coach, you start us off with an opening statement and just tell us how bowl week has been going for you and preparations leading into the game.
Yeah, it's been an exciting week. I think, as Coach Saban's talked about, it helps us a lot that we've been here before. All of our players, obviously, but the freshmen. And familiar with the surroundings too. Haven't been here for the 3 SEC championships as well. So I think that helps our guys. Our guys have worked really hard. We've still got a lot of preparation to go, but it's been a good week, and we look forward to playing a really, really good team.
All right. Damian, for you, talk about what's been your favorite experience of bowl week so far, and what are you going to remember coming out of here?
Just getting to share a special event like this with my teammates. We worked really hard to get to this point, and we know we're facing a great Washington team, but just being able to come together and playing a game like this, work together, practice, all this stuff, I think that's something that we'll all cherish for a really long time, getting to do something special like this.
All right, thanks for that. All right, we'll go ahead and go into Q&A. Raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone, please. Please remember to state your name and affiliation and to whom you're addressing your question. All right, let's start right up here in the second row right here, please.
Coach Kiffin, Kerry Clark, BamaMag.com. What their offensive players say that their defense has really prepared them for a game like this because they have such a tough defense to go up against in practice every day. For you as a game planner, what do you see on tape about their defense that stands out, Coach?
Well, I think that they don't give up many big plays. I think that it's very hard to score against them, and you see that. I think the most points you get up all year is 27, 28 points in the game. So they play really well. They're coached extremely well, and they don't make many mistakes. They don't take a lot of chances. Kind of a bend, don't break. I think there's a lot of comparison there, and I know they spend a lot of time with Pete Carroll and that staff at Seattle, and you can see a lot of comparisons in the style of defense they play. They don't do a million things, but what they do really, really well.
Right here, Barrett.
Barrett Sully, Bleacher Report. Lane, when it comes to you double-dipping, so to speak, having 2 jobs at once, how has that process gone for you finishing up recruiting, junior college signing day, building a staff, and then also how important was it for you to show your current employer, your future employer, and potential employers down the road that you can handle that kind of responsibility?
Well, I think the first part of it, there are some time issues of managing both jobs. Luckily, we are in a dead period, and when I was hired there, it was at the end of the live period, so I think it would have been more difficult had we taken the job maybe a week before, to try to balance both because you're on the road recruiting. Where now, obviously in the dead period, we can't be. It was important to get a few guys, especially to hire a defensive coordinator as soon as I could to get someone in place there. Chris Kiffin has been there, been able to evaluate all of our players, recruits, started recruiting over the phone, and then help interview defensive coaches. So that helped me a lot time-wise, and then we've been kind of working on offensive coaches in our spare time over the last week.
Next question. All right. Get a microphone right here, row 4, please. Go ahead, Tony.
Tony Barnard, SEC Network. Along those lines, Lane, do you just do the FAU work at night? Is it pretty much the same day, or your days pretty much structured like that all the time?
Yeah, they are, Tony. I've communicated with Coach. We went over the schedule to kind of find some time where, maybe there were some bowl events that he didn't need me at, so I could spend that time, whether it was on the phone or flying coaches in here, to interview coaches while we're here, and usually that time's at night.
Cecil Hurd from the Tuscaloosa News. For Damian, last year Derek was the guy at your position, obviously, but how much did the experience of being in the playoff, as Coach Kiffin mentioned, how much, just having been through it, how much does that help you this year in preparation?
What was the question?
You kind of, last year, although Derek got most of the work at running back, you were a part of the process, were able to be at the games and so forth. How much does the experience help you?
Learning from a guy like Derek, I don't if I can put into words how much that helped me watching him work day in and day out. He won the best player in college football last year. So getting to see somebody like that, seeing that work ethic that he brought to practice every single day and seeing how it translated into the game. Coaches use him as a prime example of how your work in practice helps you improve as a player in the game. And so just watching him grow, become the player that he was last year, things like that really helped me this year, I think, helped me develop a little bit better work ethic, and just seeing how practice kind of translated everything into the game and how that would help you, in the game.
All right, next question, raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you, please. Right here in the right side aisle.
Alan Cole, Sports Illustrated Kids. Just initially for both of you on tape, do you see anything similar in the Washington defense to some of the SEC defenses you've faced this season?
One thing that we noticed about Washington on tape is, like Coach Kiffin said, they just don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't do a lot of different things, but they're very fundamentally sound. They execute. They're where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. So I think that's the biggest thing about their defense. We don't want to compare them to anybody, but we think that they're they play their assignments very well, and they just do what they're coached to do.
Yeah, I would say on that probably Florida. Florida's got so much speed on their defense, especially when they were healthy and had everybody. I would say Washington would most compare to Florida as far as SEC.
Marty?
Morning, gentlemen. Marty Smith from ESPN. Coach, how do you feel you've grown the most during your time at Alabama? And we always want to know from the players, what's been the biggest impact of the Saban process on them? What's been the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I think, Marty, I would say when you talk about the process, it really is about how coach never changes. Every day is the same. And I think as a young head coach, looking back, and I've talked to Sark about this before, I think as a young coach, you had so many highs and lows, and so you win a big game, team plays really well. Maybe you don't come back on that Sunday and push the staff the same way. Maybe on that Monday's practice, you don't push the players the same way because you start to say, wait a second, we got this made. We're 5-0, and maybe we don't need to practice quite as hard because what if we get somebody hurt? I think probably the number one thing, Marty, would be the process never changes. It's the same. 7:30 staff meeting this morning, coach goes over the practice today and says each 5 minutes what we're doing in practice. Well, you don't have to write it down because it's the exact same as every Wednesday's practice for 3 years. So, and I say that kind of jokingly, but that really is the process no matter what, no matter whether you it was the first game of the year where you have all your players healthy, or it's a game like this where you've already missed some guys are out for the season. It never changes, and he's the same way, whether that's recruiting, whether that's dealing with coaches. There's no highs and lows. And he said to me before, he said, Lane, I can take good news, I can take bad news, but don't give me surprises. And so I think that really explains a lot of the process.
All right. Fourth row on the aisle right here.
Nicole Auerbach, USA Today. Lane, just how important was it for you to become a head coach again?
It wasn't, and this was, I know, when I was down at the press conference, a lot of the questions were about that, and it seemed like, okay, he just took a head job because he wanted to be a head coach, or it wasn't working at Alabama, and I answered that question out there too. That one, I don't know where that comes from, that out there that the Alabama thing was over, and the Saban Kiffin marriage, kind of ran its course, and it was 3 years. Coach has been great to me. He's never said anything but excited about coming back next year prior to this job. And we did have a great 3 years, 3 straight SEC championships and potential of 2 national championships and a Heisman Trophy winner. So it was really great, and it really was about the job. It was about that specific job. When I went in there and I met with the president, the athletic director, and the three main decision makers, and I went into the interview saying, okay, you always want to go through the interview process with different places because you learn, and you never know, those people may be somewhere else 5 years from now. And so you may impress them in the interview, even if it's a job you're not going to take. Well, I came in that room not really knowing, and I came out of that room saying, okay, I really want that job. they're committed to doing things different than they've done before, and they really want to win championships and do everything that it takes to do that.
Mark?
Coach, Mark Tracy, New York Times. I was wondering how kind of, especially with the offense, which, is not maybe his most natural thing, how hands-on Coach Saban is with the offense during games, and kind of as a follow-up to that, I think there are, some notorious instances where it appeared that maybe he wasn't totally happy with how things went on offense. So I wanted to ask, what's the happiest you recall Coach Saban being during a game with the offense or with a play call or something like that?
The happiest. Let's go back to the beginning there before we get to the happy part. I don't know that I would describe there was a happy moment. And I say this about Coach again, so this morning, after the 7:30 staff meeting before this, we watched the offensive film of practice yesterday. And I'd never done that with a coach. I'd never watched the offensive, scout team with the head coach, when the head coach is a defensive guy, like Coach Carroll. So when I got here, that was new, and I was thinking, okay, this is just Coach. He doesn't know me, so he wants to understand the game plan, how practice is going. He wants to see the players, and then if we start doing well on offense, he'll back off, and he just doesn't, he just doesn't come in for that meetings, and he stays more on defense. But today is no different than the first day, even after all the success we had. And again, there's the process. He never changes. So that's another lesson as a head coach. Hey, maybe your defense is playing really well that year. You still go in there and you still have the same schedule of watching that and watching the players and hearing the coaches so that you know the game plan versus I know myself as a head coach, I just kind of let the defensive coordinator do what he was doing. Now he happened to be my dad too, so it was kind of strange, but now I see why Coach does it. At first I thought it was he just wanted to check up on what we were doing on offense to make sure we were doing what he wanted, and it really wasn't. It's just part of the process.
All right.
So I don't recall a happy moment. I just recall the ass chewings.
All right, here on the second row.
I won't take that part of the process with me though.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. Noah Mandela, WTBY Dothan. Damien, this question's for you. Can you touch on going to the church that Martin Luther King once spoke at, and as a young African-American man, how humbling of an experience was that for you?
It's definitely a humbling experience. Just seeing what people went through, the sacrifices that they made, the hardships, the trials that people went through in order for us to have the freedoms that we have today. I mean, it was just really humbling and touching to see those people that sat where Martin Luther King sat, who were people that were there with him when he passed. I mean, just seeing that part of history, and it was almost like that history was brought to us. I mean, it's like somebody kind of put it in a person and brought it to us and just gave us that experience. But, we all enjoyed it and we had a great time. Like I said, it's just really humbling just to be able to see those people that paved the way for young African Americans like myself to have the freedoms that we do today.
All right, back here on the, yep, right there.
I'm Cecil Hurd from Tuscaloosa News for Coach Kiffin. Lane, can you give us your honest evaluation of where Jalen is from where he didn't start the first game to where he is now? And did that surprise you at all, that he's come to the point that he is right now?
Well, I wouldn't say surprised. I think that's it's extremely abnormal what he's doing. And so, again, going back to Coach Saban, I recall early in the year Jalen not playing great like the LSU game. And in my mindset was, okay, we're in Baton Rouge, it's a night game, and really that place has eaten up a lot of quarterbacks, senior quarterbacks haven't played well. I think we went down there with Blake Sims, and I can't remember exactly, but he was 16 to 36 or something like that, his number. So that place, especially when it's Alabama LSU, is really, really hard for any quarterback to play, especially a true freshman. And I remember after the game the next day kind of evaluating the game, saying, Jalen really did a good job because of the surroundings, because of that environment, because a true freshman a lot of times can't get the snap in that type of environment, let alone win the game. And I remember Coach not thinking that way. Coach was more thinking he didn't play very well, and the kids should have played better and should have done better. And I remember that interaction the next day with Coach, and I came away from it going, okay, that's just Coach's high standard. That's part of the process. He's not going to say, hey, the kid played really well, he's going to say, hey, here's the plays the kid should have made. And I think that's another valuable lesson, that he just keeps pushing them and he takes them somewhere they can't take themselves. So I think he's had an unbelievable year, again, for a true freshman. He has some great players around him that help, and the defense and special teams have made a lot of plays, but down the stretch and not turn the ball over last week at all was huge. You know, that's the type of game that you turn the ball over when you're a freshman a lot in a championship game like that normally. So it's been good. I went and worked him out, went and watched him work out in the spring, you know, before he came or before he announced, and I came away from watching that practice workout, and I came out, coach said, I think this guy's a first-round draft pick. Now he's got to make the plays in the games, but off of the workout, you know, my evaluation was he can be a first-round draft pick, and I think what we've done now with changing the offense to where we were, say, at USC, or maybe when we first got here at Alabama, or the way they were at Alabama before, I don't think he could have played right away, because true freshmen can't normally, because the pro-style system's so much more complicated. What we do now, and the limited terminology, and the speed we go at, and we don't huddle. So that takes a lot off the quarterback, and I think it's why over time in these offenses you've seen quarterbacks play without much experience, even if they're older, you know, 3 straight first-year starters for us. And I remember when Oregon had kind of their run when we were at USC, you know, a quarterback would be gone and the next guy would come in, you know, or they lost a quarterback that one summer that they had to go to a new guy, and it seemed like it didn't matter. And now I kind of understand why, because the offense is a lot easier to learn and you can play faster in it.
Okay, we're going to go right here in the aisle.
Don Hawes, WVTM in Birmingham. Lane, with Steve Sarkisian taking over as offensive coordinator, can you talk about some of the qualities that he brings to the table? How similar, with you guys having worked together so much, how similar some of the qualities will be in the Bama offense that we've seen under you?
Yeah, I think Steve's always done a great job. We were together for 6 years. He left for one of the years in between to go to the NFL and came back. So 5 of 6 years we were together, and really kind of did everything together. And I kind of think it's like we almost grew up in coaching together, and so our minds kind of think the same way with plays and stuff. That's why it's been valuable to have him here this year. He's helped us a lot. He and Mike Loxley, being off the field guys and doing the preparation the week before, have helped us a ton. So I think it's going to be a really easy transition. You know, part of in my head was in the process of talking to him in the summer into taking the job was I may not be here the next year, you know, and so I thought it was important he could help me for a year, and then if there was something where I wasn't here, it'd be an easy transition for coach to have somebody versus hiring Sark, not really knowing him and him not being around the system. That would have been a lot harder transition. So I think it's been valuable, and he'll do a great job with coach. Coach talked to me about it, you know, and I think in some ways he'll do a much better job than I do with coach.
Okay, Lindsay?
Lindsay Schnell, Sports Illustrated. Lane, a lot of people thought that everyone at Baylor was radioactive. Why were you willing to hire Kendall Briles, and do you anticipate that Art will be around the program at all, helping him? He's obviously played a big role in teaching Kendall. Yeah,
hiring Kendall, you know, was a long process that we went through. We checked out a lot of things through our university and communicating with people there. And so we feel very comfortable with Kendall's situation. He had a good game last night. He'll be flying here today to help interview guys. So as far as the other stuff, that's not really what this is about today with Art, but we have a plan with that, and we'll discuss that when we get down there. Thank you.
Okay. All the way in the back here on the right.
Coach Lauren Sisler with AL.com. Surely you know about your Twitter fame. How much thought goes into your tweets before you hit the tweet button, and does that change now that you're a head coach at FAU?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that yet. A lot of on my Twitter, what happens is you have people that help you with your Twitter when you're a coach. So I don't have that nailed yet when I get down there. I do think that it was important what some of the stuff that was done at Alabama to help recruiting, and with the rules changing about contact and what you can retweet and what you can post. And the way kids are nowadays, kids don't want to answer phones talk on the phone. So a lot of that stuff is aimed at two things, aimed at recruits and aimed at the fan base of where you're at. And so if you kind of follow the stuff in general, what happened? Well, the Alabama fans really like it, recruits read it, current players like it, and then fans of every other team don't like it. So there's good and bad, and I kind of always looked at it as, okay, my job is to help Alabama. My job is to coach these players, to recruit players to Alabama, to be part of Coach Saban's process, to be invested in the fans of Alabama and not worry what other people think. Is that the best thing to do? Probably. Would I tell young coaches that's the best thing to do? No, I wouldn't. But I've just always thought about that. I've not really, I've always valued more where I work for and the fans and the current players than what the national perception is of me.
All right, we'll take the last question here on the far left.
Coach, this question is over here for you. What are the differences between developing Coker through a national championship run and now developing a young freshman?
Yeah, very different players, obviously. So, again, I think what we always do is we always game plan to our players. And so our offenses look different all 3 years. And it's always been about what do our players do best. And I think you've seen, where I think a lot of people would say, okay, year 1 and year 3 were similar because the quarterbacks both moved around. Jalen being a true freshman and Jalen being a stronger runner than Blake is why you've really seen this year be even different than the first year. And you had Amari the first year. And so, again, that's what we do is we feature our players. And so we had Amari Cooper, so he got 124 passes, and then Derek had, the most rushes in the history of the SEC. And now we're kind of in the middle with a bunch of good players, and so just kind of spreading it around more equal. And then when your quarterback runs the ball, that takes away plays from other guys, so the numbers aren't the same for those guys.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We'll end it there.
Thank you.